Nana, various, Lakshana, having fine qualities, Veshabhyam, with their individual clothes, Krishna Ramo, Krishna and Balaram, Virejatuhu, appeared resplendent, Su Alankrito, nicely decorated, Bala, young, Gajo, elephants, Parvani, during a festival, Eva, as if, Sita, white, Itaro, and the opposite, black. Translation. Krishna and Balaram looked resplendent, each in his own unique, wonderfully ornamented outfit. They resembled a pair of young elephants, one white and the other black, decorated for a festive occasion. We continue to read the verses. Text 42. Pleased with the weaver, the Supreme Lord Krishna blessed him that after death he would achieve the liberation of attaining a form like the Lord's, and that while in this world he would enjoy supreme opulence, physical strength, influence, memory, and sensory vigor. The two lords then went to the house of the garland maker Sudama. When Sudama saw them, he at once stood up and then bowed down, placing his head on the ground. After offering them seats and bathing their feet, Sudama worshipped them and their companions with arghya, garlands, pan, sandalwood paste, and other presentations. Sudama said, O Lord, my birth is now sanctified, and my family free of contamination. Now that you both have come here, my forefathers, the demigods, and the great sages, are certainly all satisfied with me. You two lords are the ultimate cause of this entire universe, to bestow sustenance and prosperity upon this realm. You have descended with your plenary expansions. Because you are the well-wishing friends and supreme soul of the whole universe, you regard all with unbiased vision. Therefore, although you reciprocate your devotees' loving worship, you always remain equally disposed to all living beings. Please order me, your servant, to do whatever you wish. To be engaged by you in some service is certainly a great blessing for anyone. Shukadeva Goswami continued, O best of kings, having spoken these words, Sudama could understand what Krishna and Balaram wanted. Thus, with great pleasure, he presented them with garlands of fresh, fragrant flowers. Beautifully adorned with these garlands, Krishna and Balaram were delighted, and so were their companions. The two lords then offered the surrendered Sudama, who was bowing down before them, whatever benedictions he desired. Sudama chose unshakable devotion for Krishna, the supreme soul of all existence, friendship with his devotees, and transcendental compassion for all living beings. Not only did Lord Krishna grant Sudama these benedictions, but he also awarded him strength, long life, fame, beauty, and ever-increasing prosperity for his family. Then Krishna and his elder brother took their leave. Purport. We can see a clear difference between Lord Krishna's dealings with the nasty washermen and his dealings with the devoted florist Sudama. The Lord is as hard as a thunderbolt for those who defy him, and as soft as a rose for those who surrender to him. Therefore we should all sincerely surrender to Lord Krishna, since that is clearly in our self-interest. Thus end the purports of the humble servants of His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada to the 10th canto, 41st chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam entitled Krishna and Balaram Enter Mathura. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Mayam Dadati Svapadantikam Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Mukam karoti vachalam pangum langayate girim yat kripadam aham vande Sri Guru Dinotaranam Paramananda Madhavam Sri Chaitanyeshwaram Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripasindubhya evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Hare Krishna. First of all, my appreciation to Sankirtan Prabhu, who ordered me to give this class, even though it was his day to speak. We're going to talk about 3 florists, gardeners, trust and empowerment, and then we'll see how far we get. Here in this chapter, Krishna and Balaram have entered Mathura, and there's a beautiful description of how Akrura had this amazing vision of Krishna and Balaram taking bath, and he saw many wonderful things. And when Krishna and Balaram came out of the Jamuna, they asked him, "Dear uncle, is there anything wonderful that you have seen? You look quite emotional, quite stirred up." And Akrura said, "Seeing you, my Lord, there is nothing else that's amazing in this world." So Krishna reciprocates with all living entities in a very unique way. When he entered Mathura, there was different types of people, and they all saw him differently. We heard about the ladies of Mathura, who were very anxious to see Krishna and Balaram. Now, why were they anxious to see Krishna and Balaram? Because they had heard about Krishna and Balaram before. Now, Mathura is not very far from Vrndavan, and there's merchants going back and forth. There's people coming and selling their wares. There's people traveling. So they heard about Krishna and Balaram's wonderful qualities, their exquisite, extraordinary beauty. Nama pankachanabhaya, nama pankachamaline, nama pankachanetraya, namaste pankajangraye. They were all very anxious. Where is that best of all men? Where is that lotus among all? We want to see and drink with our own eyes the beauty of that person. And when Krishna entered Mathura, it is very interestingly to see what were the women of Mathura, what were they thinking? They were remembering the gopis. That's quite an astounding fact. Because from an external point of view, we may think that these are their competitors. These are the ladies in Vrndavan who have captured Krishna's heart. So, from a mundane perspective, one could think, this is the last thought, the last person that you want to remember or see when you're in face with your lovable object. But we can see that in the spiritual world, there is no inebrieties. You know what that word inebrieties means? There's no lacking, there's no deficiency. There is competition, but there is no envy. Now that's quite unique. In the marketplace, you don't find that, right? There's competition and there is envy. But in the spiritual world, there is competition, but there is no envy. So the women of Mathura, they're seeing the beautiful lotus-like forms of Krishna and Balaram, who are, as is explained here, looking like 2 young elephants, a white and a blackish elephant. And they're remembering the gopis. That is very extraordinary. That is very special. Then we have the washerman who comes with his different dyed cloths. And Krishna and Balaram, they say, "Oh, washerman, give us some of these garments. This looks just suitable for us. But the washerman, he became very angry, became very upset. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur explains, how could a simple person like a washerman have the audacity to speak in such vulgar, offensive, and obnoxious ways? Were you surprised when you heard the other day in which tones he addressed the Lord? I mean, a washerman is not a very prestigious kind of a person. Why could he speak such offensive language? Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur explains in his commentary, because he had bad association with Kamsa. That's what polluted him. Usually simple people, they're simple-hearted and they're quite kind. So it is quite astounding that this simple washerman is speaking in such boastful, with such big words, challenging, threatening, cursing the Lord directly. All because of bad association. So we can see the power of association. Now Krishna nonchalantly removed his head simply by a flick of his fingertips. Nama Chintamini Krishna's Chaitanya Rasa Vigraha Purna Shuddha Nitya Muktam Abhinatvam Nama Namino. Purna means complete. Krishna is Purna Avatar. Of course he's Avatari, but Purna means he's complete. All the rasas, all the relationships, all the different activities are fully manifested in Krishna. Just like in this chapter, you have all the different flavors. It is a very well-balanced presentation. There is the attraction of the ladies of Vrndavan. There is the admirations of Krishna's friends. There is the paternal feelings of the elder members of Mathura. There is the fighting, the chivalrous element. So many different elements and rasas are there. So Krishna is fully complete. He can accomplish with any part of his body any type of activity. He does not have to take up any weapons. He does not have to pick up bow and arrow or his Sudarshan chakra. Just with his fingers, he touched the neck of that washerman and his head went flying. And in this way, he became liberated from his misconception. Then came another person, a weaver, who very expertly fitted out the lords with taking different colored cloth and straps and ornaments which looked like jewelry, but actually was cloth, but it looked like jewelry. And very expertly he adorned the lords with these different cloths, and also the cower boys. The rest of the cloth was lying scattered on the road. And they moved on. And then here in these verses, they come upon Sudama, who is a simple garland maker. He's a florist. You know, the florist? You usually don't see them because they work in the night. Have you ever noticed when they make the preparations for the yagyas and for the festivals? They're usually out in the night doing their work. Very meticulous, very tedious work. Picking all those flowers, stringing them together, making nice ornaments and decorations. So Sudama, when he was faced with their lords, his heart went out. He was so enamored. He was so captivated by their beauty. But then he remembered. He offered his obeisances. He said wonderful praises, eloquent verses of glorification, glorifying the Lord in His different aspects, with His different potencies and His unique qualities. So it's not that he was a uneducated fellow. He was very learned, very wise. And then he remembered, I'm a florist. I want to render service. So what service should I render to the Lord? I should give them wonderful garlands. So he gave unique garlands to Krishna and Balaram. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says he gave one garland. although he gave garlands to both of them, but he secretly gave a super extra special garland to Krishna, who is his worshipful Lord. But he also welcomed and worshipped and adorned Balaram and all the cowherd boys, which is very instructive to us, because sometimes we become absorbed in the object of our love, our Ishtadev, our worshipful Lord, or our spiritual master. But we forget about whatever else is there. And we don't recognize that the Lord never comes alone. He always comes with his Sangha, Upa Anga, Astra, Parshada. He always comes with his different associates. And we cannot truly satisfy and serve and please the Lord if we do not respect and serve and worship his Sangha, Upa Anga, Astra, and Parshadas. Because Sankirtan means complete, the complete glorification of the holy name. So I'd like to speak about florists. There are 3 florists, one that we just hear about here, Sudama, and the blessings that he's asking for, and we'll get to that in a minute. This is just a short little interlude. There's another florist I like to talk about, and it's one of my spiritual masters. Is a lady, she's in Mayapur. I don't know her name. She's elderly. She has crooked teeth, but she has the most amazing smile. And she's a garland maker. She's a florist. She's walking around campus all day. Wherever there is a festival, she's there, pulling out some simple garlands, the simplest flowers. I think what do you call them, mogra? Or what? What is that? Huh? No, not jasmine. The Gunda, yeah. Very simple flowers on a rope. It's not even a thread. It's a rope. So these simple malas, she goes up to people and she holds them up. She puts that in your face and she smiles. Now, I have refused her more than 100 times. She has never taken offense. She has never become discouraged. And she has never given up. Every time I meet her, she's there smiling, showing her crooked teeth and a beautiful smile, and offering me flowers. And then she's pointing to wherever the Hati procession is, and she says, Thakur, this is for Thakur. Do you want to offer this to Thakur? So, it is very encouraging to see the persistence and the enthusiasm of this lady. Now, 2 days ago, I witnessed a miracle. I was in a car going from Wada back to Radha Gopinath, and one devotee, I think his name is Rupa Raghunath, yes. And he is preaching in the villages in that area. So he said he wants to show us some village. And I thought, this is a detour. Let's see where this goes. So we went off the main road and we went out into the fields. There was only fields and nothing. And then we parked in the middle of a field. And I thought, okay, this is interesting. We stepped out and it was like a desert, really parched. They had rice there last rainy season, but it was so dry, there was about 4 or 5 inches of cracks into the soil. Very dry land. And they said, over there. And we started walking. And I thought, this is interesting. Okay, let's see where this goes. But, my friends, Govinda, Gauranga Prabhu was there, Rupa Raghunath was there. I thought they figured out what they're doing. So I just followed them. Then we came upon a young man who was very enthusiastic. And he was chanting Hare Krishna. And he had shorts and a t-shirt. He looked like any ordinary kind of Indian worker type. But he had a blissful smile on his face. Then we went, and still, there was no village. There was nothing. It was just desert. But we got over a little hill, and then, when we looked down, there was a few houses with little patches of flowers around them. And they had some water pit, they had vermiculture, they had irrigation system. When we got to his house, there was a beautiful picture of Radha and Krishna on his front door, life size. And the devotees told me, this is an Adivasi. He's a very common forest dweller, uneducated person. But he's chanting 16 rounds. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. And we went to a few other houses where they had Mahamantra stickers on the doors and people came out smiling and chanting Hare Krishna. So I felt like witnessing Narada Muni and Parvat Muni going to meet Mrigari the hunter, who had completely changed and transformed. Because sometimes we think, how is it possible to change? Can I ever change? Will I ever change? But then we witness, we see people like this who have changed. That person said that my life has changed. Not only spiritually, because he's not eating meat anymore. He's chanting 16 rounds. He looks very blissful. He also said with his flowers, he's making 60,000 rupees a year now, which is 5,000 a month, which may not seem very spectacular for Bombay standards. But it is more money than he ever made in his whole life. And it is affording him to live a good life. And he is very eager to share his realizations with all the people in his area. So, when Sudama asked Krishna for a benediction, he did so in order to please the Lord, because the Lord wanted to give him benediction. Just like Kolabecha Sridhar did not ask for his own sake, but he asked to please the Lord. Because if the Lord or somebody wants to offer you something, then it is not recommended to refuse. We should accept. But we should follow in Sudama's footsteps and choose the right thing. So what did Sudama ask for? He asked for unshakable devotion for Krishna, the supreme soul of all existence. Unshakable. It's a very interesting word. Very often we become shaken up. We become perturbed. We become agitated. Why? Because our consciousness is like a fish bowl. It is very small. It's very easy to make an agitation in a fish bowl. Have you ever made an agitation in an aquarium or in a fish bowl? Of course you have. We all have, right? That's what kids do for fun, right? You stick your hand in there and you make some noise and you see, are the fish going to notice? Like that. So our minds, which are usually quite small, they become agitated by the slightest little disturbance. Oh, today is Ekadasi. No proper food. Okay. And you go for breakfast. But there is kheer, sweet prasad. And the devotees, they like sweet prasad. Maduram, maduram, maduradipate, maduram, maduram. But then, it is slightly burnt. There is the Boy Scout flavor. You know Boy Scouts? When you cook in the camp, in the forest, over the wood fire, sometimes it's a little burned. So we call it the Boy Scout flavor. It is slightly burned. Which may be okay with some preparations, but with sweet preparations, it's a little rasabas. It doesn't match exactly the taste. So our fish bowl becomes agitated. And we become shaken up. But Sudama is asking for unshakable devotion, which means that our minds will become big as the ocean. We will not be perturbed by all these external situations. And that can only happen when we associate with devotees whose hearts are as big as the ocean, whose compassion is all engulfing, all encompassing. Sudama asked for friendship with the devotees because it is by association that we can actually make spiritual advancement. Srila Prabhupada has created this ISKCON society so we can have these loving exchanges. Tadati pratigrinati guyamakyati prichati bhungte bojayate chaiva sadvidim pritilakshanam. I'm coming here to Radha Gopinath Mandir simply to see and to engage in these activities. And it is very inspiring. It is very motivating. And transcendental compassion for all living beings. Srila Prabhupada explains in the purport to this story in the Krishna book that Krishna consciousness is not about how much I can enjoy, how much I can benefit, how much I can get out of this. But it is about sharing. It is about preaching. It is about giving this message to others. Because it is in giving that we truly receive. Another miracle that I like to share, I spoke briefly about it in Brahmachari class, but since most of you have not been present, I will recall it again. We were in Rishikesh a few days ago with Srila Radhanath Swami Maharaj, and there was a program at Shivananda Ashram, which is one of the oldest, most renowned and staunch ashrams. There was a 45-minute invocation. They chanted entire 11th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, half of 12th chapter. A lot of Sanskrit was there, a lot of rituals. And then finally they stopped. And we thought, okay, now Maharaj is going to speak. No. First the Acharya has to speak. Then the guest can speak. So the Acharya, anybody knows his name? Vimalananda Saraswati Maharaj. Very nice sadhu. He started speaking in a very feeble voice, and he started telling how he was in San Francisco Ratha Yatra, and Srila Prabhupada was there, and how he witnessed everybody, all these Westerners, Yavanas and Mlechas, chanting and dancing, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. I thought now comes some dry philosophy. Now the old man is going to speak more of the same, of what we just heard. Of course, it's always nice to hear these invocations and these shlokas. But when you are hungry, your appetite is there. You want to hear the nectar. So, then he told how he went to Vrndavan and how Srila Radhanath Maharaj was showing him around palace, Prabhupada's palace, the deities, the farm, the cows, and the prasadam. And he was transformed. He was very, like a young boy. He started speaking in very exuberant terms. Very much unlikely to the sober and stern type of introduction. And then Srila Radhanath Maharaj spoke, and he told the story of Kolavecha Sridhar. And he spoke about Trinada Pi Suni Chena. And there was about 24 sannyasis there. And they were all looking very sober and very serious and very absorbed in Atmananda. And I was just observing. I was just watching them. And I saw how gradually they were becoming cooked. Because, every metal has a melting point. In the same way, every person has a melting point. So even though they had been studying hardcore Mayavad philosophy, they became affected. And I saw how some of them were on the floor like a puddle. They were totally melted. They were completely affected by Sridhar, who was simply asking Mahaprabhu to allow him the benediction to be wherever he is, to offer these banana leaves, cups, and plates, and have these loving exchanges of the Lord stealing from him. Trust is the highest kind of motivation. I'd like to share 2 small personal stories in this regard, which show the negative and the positive side. On the negative side, when I was about 10 years old, I was playing ice hockey. Like field hockey, but on the ice with skates. So my father, he came to one of the trainings and he asked my coach, what do you think? Is he going to be good, or what do you think? And my coach looked at me And I was then almost as tall as I am now. So he said, he's too tall, not enough muscles. He's not going to make it. He can play, but, he's not going to be really good. And I felt really discouraged. Because I thought, what is this? This is my life. And here they're talking and they're saying, this guy's not going to make it. Of course, it motivated me to prove them wrong, but still, I felt very much discouraged. On another occasion, in Mayapur, Srila Radhanath Maharaj had throat problem because the throat is the first organ in the body that gets weakened and affected when you have low energy and when you have low immune system. So I brought some herbal spray, which I gave to him, and he immediately opened it and took it and sprayed it in his throat before going to a program. And then he looked at me and he said, just see how much faith, how much trust I have in you, that I'm taking this immediately. And we both laughed. And I know that is not serious, but still, it was very encouraging. After Puri Ratha Yatra, after the Yatra, we took bath in the ocean in the evening after the last program, the last kata. So Maharaj and a couple of us were together and we went swimming in the ocean and he went out quite far. And I swam next to him and I just was there because I figured these waves are pretty big. And I don't know how good of a swimmer he is, but it would not be a good thing if he would get lost in these waves right now. So when we got back out and we changed cloth, then he looked at me and in a very sweet voice he said, thank you for protecting me. Now I did not object, but in my heart I knew you are the one who is protecting me. So I'm just allowed to stick around. Formerly, when I was in the association of Srila Radhanath Maharaj, I thought, let me be close and let me get some interaction. But very recently I had a very changing experience where I was in the room, I think it was in Puri and then also in Italy. And not only did he not look at me, he did not speak to me, he did not even validate my existence. And initially my mind was like, hello, I'm here, okay? I'm here. Did you see me? Huh? This is me, you're a disciple. I'm here now. We have not seen each other for 6 months. So you're supposed to smile at me and at least, acknowledge my existence. But none of that, nothing. It was just like, I was like a piece of furniture. Like this book stand, It's here, and I notice it's here, but I'm not reciprocating because this book stand is just fine. So I don't need this one. But later on, I was very happy. In fact, I was ecstatic because I realized that finally he had accepted me as his servant. Because you do not have to entertain your servant. You do not have to acknowledge or to converse with your servant. But your servant understands your desire, what you want. Your servant is not insecure. As long as we still need validation, as long as we still need reciprocation and exchange, it means that on some level we're still insecure. We're not yet there. Like Sudama, he was not insecure. He offered his obeisances, he got very emotional, he got a little carried away because, hey, Krishna and Balaram are here, and they're right here in my house. And, that can make you lose a breath or two. Did you ever have that experience where you lost a breath or two and you have to kind of catch up? But then immediately he remembered, I'm a florist and this is my Lord and I want to serve my Lord. So in the same way, I simply come here to observe all of you. I have to admit how diligently, how selflessly, how dedicated you're serving Guru and Gauranga and the Vaishnavas. And it is very inspiring. It is very endearing to see all the devotees. Because when you associate with devotees who are not insecure, who are not in doubt, who are not having all these issues, then that rubs off. You also become enlivened, and you also feel that sense of trust. Trust is the highest kind of motivation. If you can sense that somebody trusts you, it's a great motivating factor. Just like Dayananda. When he saw somebody on the street, he just called them over and said, "Can you hold this hammer? Can you hold this nail? Do you know how to hammer a nail? Okay, you're hired. Come here, help me build this Ratha Yatra cart." Why? Because he gave trust to these people who were nobody, people off the streets. But they felt trusted. They felt, I'm trustworthy. Nobody in this world trusts me, but this fellow trusts me. So they become devotees. It's quite astounding. This person who was growing flowers, just by associating with devotees, his life changed. And now it takes a lot of water and a little bit of expertise to grow something in that area, as you have noticed. We were in Solapur to visit Lord Vitala in Pandharpur. So in Solapur, there's a lot of pomegranates. I heard about half of India's pomegranates come from Solapur area. And we went, and with Raj Govinda Prabhu, who took very nice care of us and his wonderful family, we visited a farmer, a young Muslim person, and he showed us his pomegranates. Did you know that pomegranates, there's like 70 to 80 of these pomegranates on one bush? Now he had no crops for 4 years. Now in the 5th year, he's finally been successful. And his crop on not very big land is worth more than 1 crore. Which shows that he was taking guidance from Raj Govinda, who is knowledgeable in this field of agriculture. And he was very proudly showing him what he has done under his guidance. So steady drops of water create an oasis. You know these irrigation systems, these pipes, which, sprinkler systems? In our own lives, our heart may feel like a desert. But if we are installing a sprinkler system, and we're turning on the water every day for at least an hour or two, we have our japa, we have our Bhagavatam, we have our different spiritual programs. In this way, even a desert-like heart can become transformed into an oasis. And then there is no scarcity. How many pomegranates can you eat? Did you ever try? No. Too much effort to eat. Yeah, right. 1, maybe 2, maximum. Too much work, right? 1 bush is giving 70 or 80 fruits. There is no scarcity. So we should never come into this scarcity mentality that there is not enough for everybody. And this is an exclusive and elitist affair. No, it is not. The Sankirtan movement of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is widely available by the mercy of Srila Prabhupada. Lord Nityananda, he broke open the storehouse of love of Godhead, and he fitted a pipeline, and he went out and distributed the holy name to all the people far and wide. And Srila Prabhupada has created this ISKCON movement to distribute the holy name to everybody. And while doing that, our own faith, our own trust, our own dedication will increase. So, this is the greatest of all humanitarian activities. Srila Prabhupada writes in the Krishna books, devotee must be willing to work for the benefit of others. Lokanam hitakarino. Vaishnavas are not selfish. Whatever benefits they derive from the Supreme Personality of Godhead as benedictions, they want to distribute to all other persons. That is the greatest of all humanitarian activities. And Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur comments and says, the Lord is equal to all, but shows special mercy to the devotees. So, let us follow in the footsteps of Sudama and develop this transcendental compassion for all living beings. Now, often I look into my own heart and I don't find this compassion. I don't feel compassionate. I don't feel disturbed when I see somebody suffering. So what hope is there for me? I need to come here and associate with devotees who are compassionate, who are caring. Because simply through the power of association, it will rub off on us. Hey, if that simple washerman could get so boastful that he started insulting the Supreme Personality of Godhead, if it can work in the negative, it can also work in the positive. And there are so many sadhus here. They do not walk around with big signs around their necks. Sadhu. Will give blessing. And with a big hundi, No. They are very modest, very content in their devotional service. So Srila Prabhupada created so many oases and so many gardeners who themselves have the potency to create unlimited oases of Krishna consciousness. Of course, we have to be vigilant. That little flower garland had a fence so the animal wouldn't go in there and disturb the plants. We have to weed. The process of anartha nivritti. It has to take place. But the first thing is always hearing. Hearing from the proper authority. The ladies in Mathura heard about Krishna and Balaram, and that's why their heart was affected, and they were very eager to render devotional service. So when we hear properly, then we become inspired, we become enthused. That is the natural succession, the natural progression, that we become inspired to do devotional service. So if we're not inspired to do devotional service, oh Prabhu, I'm not inspired. There's nothing that excites me here. What does it mean? It means I have not heard attentively from the proper source. Because otherwise, I would be enthusiastic. So this is very sweet part of Srimad Bhagavatam. It is all sweet. Srimad Bhagavatam Purana Mamalam Yad Vaishnavanam Priyam. And Shuka, the parrot, has touched it with his beak. And all the acharyas have touched it. So it becomes sweeter still. And we're hearing. And through this hearing, we're relishing. Sudama, such a extraordinary person. And Krishna granted him also strength, long life, fame, beauty, ever-increasing prosperity for his family. By the way, this is just, by the way, you get this also. Side benefit. So, if you're looking for something extraordinary, we're looking for miracles, we're looking for a break, this process of bhakti yoga is the heart-changing process. Thank you very much. And thank you for your kind hospitality and friendship. It is very much needed. Please always think of me as a recipient of your mercy and as your servant. So, we're embarking on a new tour today, so we beg you for blessings because the path through the desert is long and there is a lot of thorns. And sometimes you feel like that camel. So we come here to store up as much amrit that we can get. So Srila Prabhupada, he is that gardener. And he has created so many gardeners. Please continue to shower with your drip system, Shravanadi Jal, continuous showers of nectar, of amrit, of Krishna Katha, on the people who are in your vicinity, who are in your area. They just happen to be around. You sprinkle them with Krishna Katha. And all of a sudden you will see, like these flower bushes, initially they don't look very special. Have you ever noticed? Most of the flower bushes, they look kind of ordinary. But then the little buds come, and then all of a sudden something happens. And something very beautiful starts to happen. In the same way, we are witnessing these miracles because of the diligent gardening efforts of all of you. Thank you very much. All glory Srila Prabhupada. Shri Radha Gopinath ki. Shri Gaur Nitai ki. Shri Gopal Raj ki. Gaur Premanandi. Vanchakalpatarubhyascha kripasindubhya evacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Hare Krishna.